Well, thanks a ton to Marcus and Tom for having me out of this. I love these opportunities to see new things. I was just telling Travis, like, he's got a couple visuals in there I'm already wanting to take or ask for. So what I want to do is kind of step you through what we're doing at the Rockefeller specific to Smartabase. I think my first and only disclaimer is that I have no disclaimers. We're not. So I also want to introduce Andrew Thompson and Jason Stone from my lab too. So afterwards, if you want to chat with them, all things wearables, physiology, stress, anything, they can get you covered as well. But we all work for Rockefeller at West Virginia University, so we don't have any affiliations with any companies officially, no financial ties or anything. We use what's best, which is a nice position to be in. So, I love the things that I love, and everything I'm going to show in here, there's a reason why we're using it, because we've done extensive amounts of validation and testing, and we know it really, really well. Some things certainly are newer than others, but if we're putting it on our athletes, tactical athletes, or athletes at WVU, we trust it and we know it. And if something better comes out 2 months from now and we evaluate that, we're going to shift to that. So what I will say is that I've been working with Smartabase for a long time. I think I might be the first one in the DoD that started it a few years ago. I'm pretty proud of where it's at right now, and I think it's going to get a lot bigger. But we went through a lot of processes and just understanding what the needs are on the tactical side. It needs to be incredibly flexible and needs to be able to serve a lot of different populations, a lot of different people looking at a lot of different things. So that's what drove me to this, and I tried everything else. We even went down the rabbit hole of, do we develop something from scratch, which the government likes to do, and I think they're still doing. But hey, we found out something's really, really good. So I do need to start out by this. I just wanted to remind you guys what we did to Texas last year. I don't know how many flags we got on this for the horns down. I had to add this at the last minute. I have to rub it in now because I'm not sure we're going to have too many of these moments this year. We're rebuilding, but I'll enjoy that one. And nobody bring up Iowa State or anything else, so we'll just keep it at that. So yeah, as Marcus mentioned, we've got a little bit of a different strategy at the Rockefeller. Really lucky to be there and have a pretty large financial investment from the university, and obviously we go out and get external funding as well. But what it allowed us to do is build a world-class performance facility and be able to drive the research that everything's going to plug into Smartabase, right? So we want to understand everything about physiology and wearables and everything about stressors of the tactical athlete and athletes and general populations and patients. And we think about the tactical athlete, right? It really does span across all these different levels. So there's a lot of really good ties between athletes and military. And one of the reasons we study athletes so much is that it's a much more controlled population, so we can understand things a lot more. Tactical athlete, as we all know in this room, sometimes it's hard to quantify what's really going on. So athletes give us a good model because we know exactly what they're doing at all times. We know their training loads. We have competition results, things like that. They're training really hard. There is a lot of emotional and mental stress, obviously not what a tactical athlete goes through, but there's something that we can at least start relating that to. So we gather a tremendous amount of data and information from all these different things. And then the general population side, that's just overall health and wellness. So it's sleep and nutrition and exercise, all these things that, again, affect all of us. So this is really what we're doing. We have a ton of projects within all these different lanes. And then what we look at is really on the physiological side, we take this measure, assess, move approach to everything that we do. So obviously we're all in this room. We know all the devices and gadgets and stuff, but we really are starting to tie a lot of the actual physiology, things that we can measure physiologically. But this is all the fun stuff that's happening right now, is we've got technologies that can measure a lot of these things, which is good. So we do want to understand on a very basic physiological level what all these ties are, but we have to have a technology that gives us that information, right? We can't be hooking people up to 5-lead EKGs and really crazy things in the lab. We can in the lab, but that's never going to translate to the operator. So we want to make sure that we always have that direct translation. And this is the most important part. We want to know, we can't just measure all this stuff for no reason. We have to know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and it has to be actionable to the operator. So what's a little bit different about us is I build for a bunch of different sites. I think that's all. There might be more, but and I do that for a couple of reasons, right? So my true north are the operators and people that I work with. So this allows me to, some I'm building to larger degrees than others, but I obviously build the site at WVU, so we run all of our athletics. Run the clinical side at the Rockefeller as well, so we have tons and tons of clinical projects that are going on. I am consulting with SOCOM for what they're doing on the rollout. We do work very, very closely with Joe and Jamie here from Navy Special Warfare. Work with that group forever. And then with the Detroit Lions, so my mentor, Mark Stevenson, is now their Director of Player Performance. So he's got Smartabase up there. He would have had it last year, but I was too scared because I didn't do any building myself until last March. I had an engineer do it back at the Air Force, and I knew it was the best system, but I was so worried that it'd be like a Saturday and something would be broken and I couldn't fix it, and like I can't let him down. So he went with a different system that didn't work, but now he's got Smartabase and he's jamming. A lot of our funded research is through Office of Naval Research, and I'll take you through some of the sites there. We do a tremendous amount of work with School of Infantry East with the Marine Corps. I'll take you through a couple unique challenges with them. And then partnering with Jake and Andrew, leading something pretty massive with HIT that I won't present much on now, but you'll see something pretty cool maybe at TSAC here next year. So to me, it's all about the hook. So I guess I'm a researcher at heart. We want to do really good things with this data, right? And so we have real athletes, real tactical operators, real patients, and we want to grab that data, right? But there has to be a hook, especially in the tactical population, athlete population. There's got to be a hook to get that data, right? So I've seen teams, for the last 5 years, they have a tremendous amount of data, but it's not being used, right? Because there's not a central system to do this. And we're kind of at the mercy of the strength coaches and the athletic trainers. And they work harder than anybody on the planet, 16, 18 hours a day, every day, and they're gathering data. So what I try to do with Smartabase, because Smartabase is our ultimate tool that's where all of the data exists. So that's where we can do an amazing amount of science and drive action and really understand these things. Because we're just kind of at the very, very tip of the mountain right now. So what I try to do every time I talk to a new team is I want to understand pain points for every single practitioner. So what are you doing every day that sucks? Like, how much time are you spending putting things into Excel, doing Excel things, doing PowerPoint things, doing reports for coaches, whatever you need to report up the chain. Like, if I can save you time with Smartabase, which it will always save you time if you do things the right way, that's going to be the first hook that kind of gets them in. So I'm going to make your life easier to get that data. And then as long as the data is going in and we can rely on that data, that's kind of where it comes in. So I want to give you a couple examples of that, similar to what Travis said. And I'll highlight a couple athletics things and I'll get into some tactical stuff. But this is pretty simple, but I would say, at least my experience in football, probably one of the most important data points they have are just weigh-ins and weigh-outs. And I think that is important for all populations. We think about hydration and replenishing nutrition, especially at the high training loads that tactical operators are operating at. So I think about football. I have 110 athletes every single day. So we have, just like Texas has, we've got kiosks everywhere that track everything that they do. And they weigh in and weigh out, right? So they hit their face, get on a Bluetooth scale, it goes right off. And then I was like, hey, by the way, while we're doing that, can I throw a couple wellness questionnaires in there really quick at the kiosk, because I can't get football players to do an app. Other sports I can. There's just a lot of them. So we do that weigh in, and then what's cool about the weigh out, as soon as they weigh out, right, so I get an RPE, which is amazingly important. I get a subjective performance rating, which is really important to start doing some analytics towards performance. And then they get immediate feedback. So what we care about is on weigh-in, if they're more than 3 pounds away from their goal weight, there's a flag that's sent automatically to the nutritionists and to the strength coaches. On weigh out, if they lose more than 2.5% of their body weight, again, automatic alerts going in there. So super actionable, super relevant, not all that scientific, but incredibly important. But this is where, before we had the system, like, it was pen and paper and Excel and doing reports for hours and hours and hours a day. So we immediately saved them a ton of time with that. Some of the other things on the kiosk tracking side that really help, and I think this is going to help the tactical operator quite a bit too, especially when you get into places that have a lot of these recovery modalities and do a lot of other things. Like, we can now start tracking nutrition. So it can be anything very, very simple, from just a check-in, did you eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner? And it's going to log, who checked in and who ate. Our basketball team is actually taking pictures of their food. So nutritionists go in there, use the Eat to Win app. Athletes take a picture of it. A nutritionist intern has the awesome job is to log in 3 times a day, look at every athlete and assess macros before they ate. And then we, again, put that into Smartabase. Obviously football, that's gonna be harder with a lot of them. Then recovery tracking, so we've got float tanks and light therapy and cryotherapy and Normatex, all sorts of stuff everywhere. We've got an iPad at every single kiosk. So now I'm tracking exactly when every athlete is doing every single thing, which is amazingly important, which is what I was missing before Smartabase, because I'm getting all this data, but I don't know who's floating. I don't know who's in the light bed. But now, literally, before you get in there, I know exactly when everybody's doing stuff. So now we can tie that physiology into what they're doing on the recovery side. Good. All right, let me jump through. All right, so what's new? Again, what I love about Smartabase it's all about creativity. And I was telling Travis like some of the visuals he has, like, oh, that's great. I didn't think about ways to do that. And I don't think myself as creative generally. But when you think about all this data coming in, it's all about data visualization, right? Driving action to the practitioner is, I have a ton of data coming in. How do I get you to look at one thing? And this is what I need to know right now. Like if I need to triage real quick, I have 100 operators, 100 athletes. How do I get you to that quick action? So maybe at the end of the day, you can look into time series and dig into somebody else, but I got 5 minutes right now. I got to look and see what guys do I need to worry about, what do I need to do. So this is a collaboration with Navy Special Warfare. We've been working on this for probably close to a year now. It's really, really cool. It's come out really well. My brain was smoking for a long time trying to figure out how to get this to work. But now that we have a system, now we've scaled it out and I'm doing it to some level with football and some other places. But basically what we did, and this is, again, all credit to the HP staff at NSW, is this is all practitioner driven. This is not meant to read, I'm sorry. This is just to conceptually say like, holy cow, that's a lot of information. But if you think about it as a practitioner, right, if you see this data coming in, just good practice, like if your sleep score sucks 3 days in a row, what would if you came into me and I saw that data as a practitioner, what would I do? What action would I take? So basically of all of these alerts, so this is all data that's coming in to their site. So it's from wellness, it's from training load RPEs, from every single training that the guys are doing, strength conditioning, tactical, combatives. So we calculate RPEs on all those different things, heart rate variability, Garmin all-day activity. Now we're doing Aura, all sorts of great stuff. So we've set up all these triggers and alerts. A lot of them are based off of Z-scores, so we can now see, I care about individual differences, right? I'm not gonna compare you to somebody else for this type of data. So every single one of these is a different alert. Some of them are like, if this happens today, I wanna know. Some of them is like, if this happens 3 days in a row, I wanna know. Some of it's, if it happens 3 out of 5 days. So Smartabase can do all of that with some pretty intensive calculations. So that's what all these alerts are, but then like, if that thing happens, these are your recommendations on what you should do. So it's not meant to replace a coach by any means, by any stretch. It's just meant to be instant, real-time, actionable information that an operator can see and say, oh, this happened in my data, this was programmed by my practitioners, this can change throughout time, this is what I need to do. But then it can also have that conversation where what the coaches see on their side is now you have an entire group coming in. All of those alerts are automatically calculated. So today you see like, this is their morning check of what's going on with the guys. So these are all the flags that happen. It's sorted by total number of flags. These are recommendations. So now, as practitioners down there, they can say, this guy's got an issue. He's got 3 flags. What's going on with those 3 flags? And then you can go deeper into time series and look at that. And then maybe you call the operator in and say like, hey, what's going on? What can we do for you? So it's instant actionable. So that's the biggest thing I'm really, really excited about. And then what that really enabled us to do is dig into mobile dashboards. So I hadn't touched mobile dashboards at all until, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. But this is incredibly important, I think, on the tactical side, is giving that feedback directly back to the tactical athlete, right? So a lot of times this all just goes into black box and they don't know what's happening with their data. And that can lead to data fatigue. Like, why am I putting this stuff in all the time? Why am I doing these measurements? Because I don't know what they mean. And you're kind of at the mercy of the native apps to try to understand what they mean. So now we've got control over all of that. Again, this was all designed by the HP team at NSW. I just kind of enabled some of it. We just think creatively through. So this is, again, what an operator would see. And so they log in. So right away, and they'll also get automated alerts. So if flags happen as soon as they do a measurement, you'll get an automated in-app alert that says, hey, this just happened. Go check your dashboard for more details. And if everything's good, nothing happened, then you just don't get an alert and everything's good. So now those same things that are programmed in that massive Excel table, this is what we see. So, hey, this is what's happening with me. These are my primary, secondary, tertiary recommendations of what I can do today, all triggered in real time from all the different sources. And then through different tabs, they can look at a 7-day history, which we found visually looks really, really good on the mobile, because obviously you can't do too many big things on the mobile. This came out really well. So got nice visuals that show, hey, here's my scores today. Here's my 28-day average, which is a little bit more easy to understand than a Z-score directly for the operators. So that all comes in from all their data. The other thing we can do too is testing data. So if you do DEXAs or force plate testing or vertical testing or broad jump or anything, now they can kind of see progression over time for some things that are less daily, but now they can see some of their progress there. Then a new thing that we just programmed in that we're pretty excited about is nutritional recommendations, again, designed by the nutritionists at the command, where basically looking at the load that you just, so if you did a strength training, it'll actually come back with prescriptive based on body weight and some training load of how many grams of macros you need. So again, the system can do all that good stuff. Kind of finish up here with some of the integration. So I'd say we're generally one of the first beta testers for a lot of integration. So, with all the different sites we work with, again, these are all trusted technologies and we use these things, but now we need to integrate them in. So Aura is one of the biggest things we're working on right now. And what I love about them having some Aussies is I was able to email Angus all night, and he got some stuff working. So we got Aura running with our women's soccer team. And the API was working, but there's always little kinks with it, right? Just understanding time zones and when data comes in and all that. Especially sleep gets really complicated because, like, is it when the sleep started, when sleep ended? So we kind of went through that, but I'd say within a week, we got it flowing really, really well. So now that's all directly going in there. ForceX just went live, which I was excited about because that import was brutal. But now the API works beautifully, automatically just comes straight in. So anybody that knows ForceX data, it's amazing data, it's a ton of data, but now it just automatically comes in and we can turn quick, easy calculations for that. So if you just want to see a few metrics, we got those turning pretty fast. Garmin we've had working for a while, that's working pretty solid. So everything that comes in through Garmin Connect, we're pulling in. And then FirstBeat's the next one we're excited about, that one's in the queue for the team system. And then just to look at, I think what came out is a nice visual for Aura sleep data. So again, for an entire team, now I can look at team averages for sleep quantity, recovery score, resting heart rate. Just to kind of start, I thought those were important ones to start looking at. So now automatically I can see with my team, like, what are my trends today as a team? So do I have anything to worry about on a team side? And then individual athletes, you can now look into their scores. So their Z-score, sleep time, Z-score, and we got conditional flags set up. So if you're off on your Z-score, I can pretty quickly see that. It's a good compliance one too, so you can see who's missing data. And we can kind of get with them. The very last thing I want to talk about 2 more minutes, is a new challenge that we've got, which is pretty unique. I'd say the challenge with the higher end operators is it needs to be such a good system and provide such actionable information. Like, we need them to want to use it, right? So and we can't BS it, right? So it's got to work, it's got to look good, it's got to be actionable, it's got to be relevant to them. Now our next challenge with the Marines is big data. So not big data from a sense where a data nerd would say big data like terabytes. Big data is just at School of Infantry East, they go through 17,000 Marines every single year. They get 500 new ones every Tuesday. So just thinking about ways that we can get all those profiles set up and get all that data. So all 17,000 Marines we're doing something with. So counter movement jumps with ForceX is the biggest thing that we're doing. All the injury evaluations are done too. So now we're just thinking about that process of, like, oh, holy cow, I get a roster Monday night, Tuesday morning they're showing up. How do we do that? What if we don't have some information? So that's kind of what we're doing. And then another crazy one, just kind of shows the flexibility of the system, is what we did with them is they had this crazy academic model where they're looking at, this is brutal, so 9 KPAs, sub KPAs. So they want to individually assess a bunch of Marines every day on all these different things. All these sub KPAs have a very specific text string of, like, that's the grade they're going to get, because so every single one of these has one of these in a PDF, and I have no idea how they were going to do it. But what we did is we set up a kiosk. So through that data entry, through an iPad, they can actually just string through, say, hey, I want to evaluate them on this, and then boom, it comes up. This was a long weekend, but comes up with all these different things like, hey, that's what it is. So again, just trying to enable easy action for all these groups. Oh, sorry, the very last thing I want to plug, if you do this, I'll be your friend forever. So we do a ton of gold standard wearables testing in our lab, and we'll have a couple of really exciting publications coming out in the next couple of months on that. Heart rate variability, sleep, they're the first 2 big ones that we've done. But we had a thought a few months ago of, yeah, we can report all day long how accurate devices are, right? And so we can do a publication that says beat to beat accuracy of all these different things. But nobody's telling us how accurate it needs to be, right? And I think that needs to come, we think that needs to come from the community. So what the survey is, if you want to take a picture of that, it'll take you to a Qualtrics survey. And what we did is we designed a 5 to 10 minute survey on sports science technology. So not just for athletics, but for every population. And we've got questions in there that ask, what your background is, right? So what I want to know, is there a consensus with the strength conditioning community going through all these different devices saying, like, if I have a heart rate monitor, how accurate does that need to be for me to take action as a strength coach? Same thing for an AT, same thing for anybody else. So hopefully if we get enough responses to this and we find a consensus, we can then match that up. So you can get the papers that say this is how accurate everything is. And then if we have a consensus, then that can give you a guidance like, hey, I'm a strength coach. These are the devices. This is my threshold for what the community thinks. Then I can pick one of these things in this area. And then you can be like, if it's price, logistics, whatever, you can do that. So yeah, it's just a plug for that. I think Andrew's going to show it in his talk as well. So yeah, please fill that out. We really want to know what the community thinks. All right, thanks guys.